Welcome back. So just moments ago, President Donald Trump spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One. We've got some of that audio now. Let's take a listen.
Mr. President, if there's language in the final summit declaration about aggression by Russia, would you be okay with that kind of language?
Well, I'll have to take a look at it, but, I'd like to see a deal with Russia. As you know, Vladimir called me up. He said, can I help you with Iran? I said, no, I don't need help with Iran. I need help with you. And I hope we're going to be getting a deal done with Russia. It's a shame. 6,000 soldiers died last week. More, 6,500 soldiers died last week. Russia, Ukraine, a war that never would have happened if I was president. So enjoy your flight.
Let me ask you one more follow-up. In your comments just now about Article 5, that will probably make some people in Europe concerned. Can you clarify what you mean? Are you still committed to mutual defense?
I'm committed to saving lives. I'm committed to life and safety. And I'm going to give you an exact definition when I get there. I just don't want to do it on the back of an airplane. Okay?
And one other question on energy. What's your take on the oil price situation right now, and are you concerned?
Great. I love it. It dropped almost $10 yesterday. I put out a statement, get it down, because a lot of people aren't able to do things when the energy goes down. We're going to have a lot less conflict. So it came down, and our energy department's doing a great job. We're drilling like we've never drilled before. We're keeping it down. We're going to keep it down until all these wars are settled. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you.
Iranian sleeper cells in the United States.
Biden let a lot of super cells in. Biden was an incompetent president, had no idea what he was doing. He hardly ever signed a document. Other people signed documents for him with the auto pen. It was gross incompetence. And among everything else, he let a lot of super cells in, many from Iran. But hopefully we'll take care of them. What Biden did to this country should never be forgotten.
So just to digest a little bit of what the president said there, headline being that he spoke with Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. He said Putin offered to help him with Iran, to which he said to Putin, I don't need help with Iran, I need help with you in stopping the war with Ukraine. He made comments about Article 5 with NATO, hedged on U.S. commitments to that. You heard him there talking about possible Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S. He bashed the Biden administration once again for the open border. And then he talked about oil prices, saying, I do love the oil prices. They dropped $10 yesterday, and the Energy Department is doing a great job. And Dana, that is a great segue over to you, because that is what you're going to be talking about right now.
Bill Malugin, no one better at transitions than you. Yes, we want to talk about possible turmoil, get that, in the Middle East. So we're going to do a little geography lesson, and this is the Strait of Hormuz, okay? So this is where about 20% of the global total of all petroleum products goes through this area. And as you can see, this is Iran here in the yellow, and it's 104 miles long right here, and only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, which means that if the Iranians, who have said they are considering and passed in their parliament that they want to close this, that could cause big problems for the world, and also those prices that the president was talking about. About 20 million barrels a day goes through there. As I mentioned, 20% of the global total. Here's what the president said to the Secretary of Energy: drill, baby, drill, and he means now. So who better to ask about that than the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright. Mr. Secretary, one of the things the president just said on Air Force One is that he wants to keep it down, and that you're going to keep it down. But how much of it is what you can do versus what the global supply and demand market does?
Yeah, of course, prices are set by global supply and demand, but this president's leadership has restored confidence that America will continue to be a major producer of oil, and that we're close with our allies. They're the other major producers of oil in the region. When you're in negotiation and in these tense situations, three things matter. You have to have respect, you have to have carrots, and you have to have sticks. The president has brought all three of those to this situation in the Middle East, where Biden had carrots, but he didn't have the respect of our opponents, and he didn't bring credible sticks. And you just can't get peace. You can't get a good deal in that situation. But with this president, we can.
Okay, so I mentioned that in the parliament in Iran passed a legislation or a resolution saying that they want to explore closing the Strait of Hormuz. But that has to go to the supreme leader before anything is decided. What do you know about the possibilities there?
Look, Iran has talked repeatedly about closing the Straits of Hormuz for 40 years. It's never effectively been closed. I mean, they could throw mines out there, they could shoot missiles, but think about this. All of their oil exports go through the Strait of Hormuz, all of them. All of their imports come in the Strait of Hormuz. The United States today is a net oil exporter. We don't count on any meaningful way on oil coming out of that strait. So, yeah, look, Iran would harm itself more than it would harm anyone else. They'll probably cause a mess or trouble, but it'll be small. I think you're seeing that reflected in oil prices today. They're lower today than they were when shots were fired. Gasoline and diesel prices today are lower than they were a year ago. In the middle of a crisis in the Mideast, this is American energy dominance on full display.
Maybe one of the reasons that Iran would not want to do this is because it would hurt Asia and China in terms of closing the Strait of Hormuz. Let's show call for 3 here. 84% of the crude oil about the same amount of liquefied natural gas goes through the Strait of Hormuz over to Asia and China. And I imagine that Iran would not want to anger them at the moment. You mentioned also the price. Let's just show this here. Before the fighting, it was $68 a barrel. Today, it's $65 a barrel. Can you give America an update? We're about 6 months into the Trump administration on where we are on drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, we've seen huge growth in drilling for natural gas and production of natural gas. Because for these markets, the U.S. can produce so much today. The biggest determinant of how much we produce is how much we can move to market and be consumed. Natural gas, we're by far and away the world's biggest producer, but we need more ability to export it. I've approved more LNG export permit approvals than the second largest exporter of LNG in the world. So we see huge growth in capacity coming for U.S. exports. We're going to see reshoring of industry in the United States. That's going to consume more of our energy in this country. And our oil production, when you add in natural gas liquids, over 20 million barrels a day, we're over 20% of total global production. So I'd say the industry very strong today. And we're doing everything we can to push down the break-even prices.
Okay, the ceasefire that President Trump announced last night around 6:01 p.m., right after the 5. We were like, shoot, sir, we could have given that to us during the 5. But it's fragile. And Iran sent some rockets over that killed several people, a family of 4. Mike Tobin just reported on that. How important is it for you, as you're looking at your job and also the oil markets, that this ceasefire hold? Or is the market pricing in a little bit of instability still in the region, even after a ceasefire is called?
Yeah, Dana, I don't think anyone knows exactly what the future brings here, but I think the market is pricing in confidence that American strength, American resolve is ultimately going to lead to more peace in the Middle East, and that we're not going to see any meaningful blockage of flows of oil through the Straits of Hormuz, and the U.S. will continue to be a large exporter of oil and by far the largest exporter of natural gas. So you're seeing confidence across the planet in President Trump's leadership and in his energy dominance agenda.
Let me ask you this, because we love breaking news and live TV, and President Trump just posted this. He said China can now continue to purchase oil from Iran. Hopefully they will be purchasing plenty from the U.S. also, and it was my great honor to make this happen. Is there a possibility in the discussions with China, with all the tariff stuff going on and all of the adversarial nature of our relationship, is it possible that they would be able to buy more from us?
Oh, I think it's very possible. It's very possible. Look, since when you were in the White House with President Bush, the United States was by far the world's biggest importer of oil and natural gas. Today, the biggest importer of oil and natural gas is China, and the United States has flipped into the other situation. But energy trade with our allies and with China is also a great potential stabilizing force. Sure, it could help a trade deal between the U.S. and China for China to take more U.S. energy exports. I think that's a very real possibility.
My last question is, just based on that, in terms of the flip from import to export, one of the great reasons for that is because of new technology that allowed for fracking. Are we on the cusp of any other new technologies that would allow drill, baby, drill to grow even more?
Well, we're working on, it's maybe still a few years away, working on a next generation shale technology that'll enhance the recovery from shale wells. Shale has been the game changer. And the other big thing there, Dana, you'll see is in the Gulf of America. You know, this was a mature region, kind of on gentle decline for years. Significant growth in production in Gulf of America this year, and we'll see significant growth in production there in next year. And you followed our trip to Alaska a few weeks ago. Enormous, simply enormous untapped potential in Alaska. So there's decades more of U.S. oil production growth in front of us.
Well, one of my favorite issues to talk about is energy. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.